thank the Prime Minister, and to open the case for the opposition, I invite the Leader of Opposition, Ms. Zati Hanani.
In the name of Allah, the most gracious and most merciful, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I greet you wise educators, accurate timekeeper, worthy opponents, fellow teammates, and last but not least, members of this august house. Today we'll be debating on a very simple motion, simply because today we'll be debating on a very simple motion that this house supports Iran's rights to pursue nuclear weapons if they want to, and we on the opposition side totally oppose with today's motion simply because it is not the right thing to do. So we'll move on with the rebuttals itself. The first speaker actually stood up and saying that when they want to have this nuclear weapon, it's okay for them to have under circumstances that they will be actually guided or monitored by the UNSC itself. That is what they clearly stated. Then they said that by having this, you wouldn't have to worry about them, us missing about by developing this nuclear weapon would have some misusage because they will be monitored by the UNSC itself. But then I will give you a simple analogy, Madam Speaker. If you have something that you really want to use, if you have something that you really want to use, but your mother said no, you cannot use it, or your mother is the one that monitors you whether you can use it or not, and suddenly when you want to use it, when you have the intentions of doing it, because normally it's human's nature when they have something, they want to use it. So when you have something but you're not allowed to use it, do you want to have it at the first place? No, because for example, if you're buying something that is cost a lot of money, and suddenly you'll not be able to use it simply because your mom says no. For example, you have something, and then your mom says, no, you cannot use this because it's not good. No, you cannot do this. Or for example, in their case, that nuclear weapons perhaps, they say that you cannot use nuclear weapons because, because this country, you cannot attack this country because we want to maintain peace, so you cannot attack this country. So by actually having this, they would say that you will monitor the peace itself. But then I question you, would you have something but you don't want to use it? No, that's why when Iran, if they have this nuclear weapon itself, why would you develop the nuclear weapon if they won't be able to use it? Because if UNSC keep on saying to them, no, you cannot use it, then why would they want to develop it at the first place if they know that they cannot use it at the first place? Then they want to talk about this hypocrisy where UNSC having it alone, that the UNSC wouldn't be allowing only them to have, but not the Iran. We question them. Do Iran have the capability of actually developing this nuclear weapon? This will actually come under my first point that I will actually explain later. Then we want to talk about the how having this right, or where Pakistan have it when nuclear weapons have been developed in certain countries such as Pakistan and so on. That's what they brought up. But again, I question you. If you want to compare Pakistan and Iran, do Iran have the same capability as Pakistan itself? That will actually be explained in my first point under the keyword of feasibility itself. But before that, I as the first speaker stood up would actually talk about the feasibility, and my second speaker would talk about the contradicting of nuclear summit, and then the third point is under the keyword of can cause World War III. When you want to talk about where the rightness of it, well, we want to tell you that Iran, they will definitely launch it to the USA itself. And why? Okay, the president of Iran itself, which is the Ahmadinejad, they actually say that they do not like the West country itself. So it shows that Iran, they have a higher percentage of actually wanting to attack the West country itself. So I think I'm done with the rebuttal. So I should move on to the first point that is under the keyword of feasibility. Okay, why do we not support today's motion? Simply because we think that the Iran, they do not have the capability. Thus, this motion is not, thus by having nuclear weapon, it is not feasible for them to have it. Why? Because, how do we say it is not feasible? Firstly, we know if Iran, they cannot eliminate the poverty in the country itself. We know Iran have been facing with having people around in their country itself with hunger, and that is why we say they don't have the capability. Firstly, because they cannot eliminate the poverty in the country itself. Sit down, sir, and just let me start this. So they cannot eliminate the poverty in country. When we talk about poverty, we're talking about the country itself. They do not have sufficient money to actually counter the problem of their people being hungry. So that is why we say they don't have the capability because they cannot eliminate poverty. Why? Because they do not have sufficient money to actually counter this problem. And what makes you think they will have this sufficient money to actually develop the nuclear weapon itself? So then we talk about the things that we want to say is that by actually, if you don't have sufficient money, why do you want to develop a nuclear weapon? Instead, you can actually use that money to actually conquer another problem, a bigger problem in your country, such as what? The poverty itself. So that is why we should think of other things that is much more important, that is the people itself, in the nation, in the country itself, compared to actually developing a nuclear weapon itself. And that is why the reason why we say that the Iran, they are not feasible. By developing this nuclear weapon is not feasible to the Iran. And secondly, why do we say this? Is because the International Atomic Energy Association, or known as IAEA, actually sent a representative to Iran. They actually sent a representative to Iran, and what the information that they get is that it proved that Iran have no sufficient facilities to actually develop a nuclear weapon itself. What do we mean by this insufficient facilities? Is that they do not have this facilities such as the nuclear laboratory, such as things like that. So how do you think by not having this sufficient facilities could actually help them in developing the nuclear weapon itself? So that is why we say Iran have no capability on actually going to develop this nuclear weapon itself. Then the second one, which I mentioned earlier, is that we are not making Iran to actually have this nuclear weapon. Why? Because they can actually occur a high percentage of attacking the West country itself. And I give an example earlier, which is the president, which is Ahmad, that he mentioned that he hates the West country itself. Iran will definitely launch it to USA. Why? Because the neighboring countries of the USA, none of them is the ally of Iran. So like we stated earlier, nuclear weapons, if you actually launch to a country, it will develop to another surrounding around them. So when the Iranians actually think that the countries around USA have no allies on them, they will think that, oh, it's okay to launch your country. And that is why we say, another reason why we think that Iran should not have this nuclear weapon itself. So before I take my seat, I would like to reaffirm our stand that this House will not support Iran. This House support Iran's right to pursue nuclear weapons if they want to, and we on the opposition side totally oppose to today's motion simply because it is not the right thing to do, and that I proudly oppose it.